Bella Ford's hands trembled as she stood in the marble entryway of the Villo estate, her worn duffel bag clutched against her chest like a shield. The words still echoed in her ears, sharp and cutting as broken glass. "You're a thief," Vanessa Hartwell had said, her diamond earrings catching the light from the crystal chandelier above. "Did you really think you could steal from this family and get away with it?" Bella had worked in this house for 9 months. 9 months of waking up at 5 a.m. to catch 2 buses across Chicago. 9 months of scrubbing floors until her knees ached, of reading bedtime stories until her voice grew hoarse, of loving a little boy who wasn't hers but who'd wrapped himself around her heart anyway. And now, in a single moment, it was all crumbling because of a lie she couldn't prove false. But what Vanessa didn't know, what no one in this glittering mansion knew, was that Bella had a secret. A secret that made this job, this income, absolutely vital. A secret that involved the leftover food she carefully packaged every night, the children waiting in the shadows of her old neighborhood, the hunger she remembered too well from her own childhood. The worst part? Maximo Villo, the man who owned this estate, the most powerful and feared figure in Chicago's underworld, was standing right there, and he was engaged to the woman destroying Bella's life with a smile on her perfectly painted lips. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Bella had stood outside the iron gates of the Villo estate on a freezing January morning, her threadbare coat doing little against the wind that whipped off Lake Michigan. The mansion beyond the gates looked like something from a movie, all stone and glass and impossible wealth, surrounded by gardens that probably cost more to maintain than she'd earned in her entire life. She almost turned around. "You here for the nanny position?" A woman in her 50s appeared at the gate, her sharp eyes taking in Bella's second-hand interview clothes with a single sweep. "Yes, ma'am, Bella Ford." She straightened her spine, forcing confidence she didn't feel into her voice. "Maria Santos, head of household." The woman unlocked the gate. "The previous nanny quit yesterday. No notice, just gone. Mr. Villo's son has been asking for her non-stop, and Mr. Villo doesn't have time to deal with the disruption." She paused, studying Bella more carefully. "Can you start today?" Bella thought of her empty refrigerator, the eviction notice tucked in her purse, the electricity bill she couldn't pay, the kids in her old neighborhood who depended on the food she brought them every week. "Yes, ma'am. I can start right now." She had no idea what she was walking into. The first week passed in a blur of exhaustion. Bella cleaned rooms larger than her entire apartment, learned which crystal was Waterford and which was Baccarat, mastered the art of becoming invisible. In houses like this, staff were expected to appear only when needed and disappear the moment their tasks were complete. She rarely saw Maximo Villo himself. He left before dawn, returned long after midnight when she'd already gone home, but she felt his presence everywhere in the way the other staff moved faster when his car pulled into the driveway, in the hushed phone conversations that stopped the moment she entered a room, in the private wing where no one was allowed without explicit permission. Bella learned quickly that Maximo Villo wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in ways that made politicians nervous and enemies disappear. But then there was his son. "Why did Miss Rebecca leave?" 6-year-old Leonardo asked, on Bella's 3rd day, his dark eyes so much like his father's filled with confusion and hurt. "Did I do something wrong?" Bella's heart cracked. She knelt beside him in the library where he'd been sitting alone, surrounded by books but looking utterly lost. "Oh, sweetheart, no. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups have to make changes, but it's never because of you." "Everyone leaves," Leo whispered. "My mama left. Now, Miss Rebecca, are you going to leave too?" Bella thought about making promises she might not be able to keep. But looking at this beautiful, wounded child, she couldn't help herself. "I'm not going anywhere, Leo, I promise." Something in her voice must have convinced him because, after a long moment, he nodded. Then, shyly, he held up the book he'd been reading. "Do you want to read with me? It's about dinosaurs." "I would love to," Bella said, and meant it with everything in her. That had been 9 months ago. 9 months of watching Leo transform from a quiet, withdrawn child into a boy who laughed freely, who ran to greet her every morning, who called her Bella in a way that made her feel like she mattered. 9 months of carefully avoiding Maximo Villo. It was her 4th week when she first came face to face with him. Bella had been dusting the study, a room filled with dark wood, leather, and the scent of expensive cigars when she heard footsteps behind her. "Who are you?" The voice was deep, commanding, and came from directly behind her. Bella spun around so fast she nearly knocked over the antique globe she'd been cleaning. Maximo Villo stood in the doorway, and Bella's breath caught. He was nothing like she'd imagined. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a black suit tailored to perfection, his white shirt open at the collar. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and intensity, strong jaw, straight nose, eyes so dark they were almost black. A tattoo peeked from beneath his collar, some kind of script she couldn't read from this distance, but it was his presence that struck her most. He filled the room without moving, commanded attention without raising his voice. This was a man who gave orders and expected them to be followed without question. I'm Bella, sir, the new nanny. She clutched the dusting cloth like a lifeline. Maria said I should clean the study before noon. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to be here. I can come back. You're fine. He moved into the room, and Bella instinctively stepped back. He noticed, and something flickered in his expression. Relax. I don't bite. Bella wasn't entirely sure she believed that. He walked to the bar cart, poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid. Bella, he said, as if testing her name. Maria says you're the best nanny she's hired in years. Leo actually smiles now. Thank you, sir. Bella's heart hammered. She'd never been this close to him before, had never realized how his presence seemed to charge the very air around him. Maximo turned to look at her, really look at her, and Bella felt pinned by his gaze. She was suddenly painfully aware of her simple uniform, her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, the calluses on her hands from work. But he wasn't looking at her with disdain. He was looking at her with interest. How old are you, Bella? 26, sir. You live nearby? About an hour by bus and train. She didn't mention that her apartment was in Englewood, in the kind of neighborhood where you didn't walk alone after dark, where gunshots were background noise, where the heat barely worked and the landlord ignored every complaint. Maximo nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. If you ever need anything, if anyone gives you trouble, you tell Maria. Understood? It was a strange thing to say. Bella nodded, unsure how to respond. He moved toward the door, then paused. And Bella? You don't need to call me sir every sentence. Maximo is fine when we're alone. Then he was gone, leaving Bella standing in the study with her heart racing and her mind spinning. Over the following weeks, Bella saw more of Maximo. Not by design, their paths simply crossed more often. He'd appear in the kitchen while she was preparing Leo's lunch, would work in the study while she cleaned. He never said much, but she felt his eyes on her, felt something shifting in the air between them. It was dangerous. She knew that. Maximo Villo was not just out of her league, he was in a different universe entirely. And yet, she found herself looking forward to those moments, found herself disappointed on days when she didn't see him. Then Vanessa Hartwell entered the picture. Bella was organizing Leo's playroom when she heard the commotion, excited voices, the click of expensive heels, Maria barking orders to prepare the formal dining room. She's here, one of the other housekeepers whispered to Bella. Mr. Villo's fiancé. Bella's stomach dropped, though she had no right to feel anything at all. Vanessa swept into the house like she owned it, and perhaps in a way, she soon would. Tall and slender, with honey blonde hair that fell in perfect waves, she wore wealth like armor. Her engagement ring caught the light, a diamond so large it seemed almost obscene. You must be the help, Vanessa said when she spotted Bella in the hallway, her tone making help sound like something dirty. Make sure my bags are taken to the master suite, and be careful everything in them costs more than you make in a year. Bella bit back a response and simply nodded. Yes, ma'am. Over the next months, a pattern emerged. Vanessa would descend on the mansion like a storm, criticizing everything from the thread count of the sheets to the way Bella arranged Leo's schedule. She treated the staff like furniture, useful, but certainly not deserving of basic courtesy. And she watched Bella. Bella felt those cold blue eyes following her, noticed how Vanessa would appear whenever Maximo happened to be in the same room. Once, Bella had been reaching for a book Maximo had requested from a high shelf, and he'd steadied her elbow when she wobbled on the step stool. It was nothing, a gesture lasting barely a second, but Vanessa had seen, and her expression had turned venomous. After that, things got worse. Vanessa began finding fault with everything Bella did. The floors weren't clean enough. Leo's schedule wasn't structured properly. This room or that room wasn't to her specifications. Bella worked harder, stayed later, did everything possible to be perfect. It wasn't enough. Because the truth was, Vanessa didn't care about clean floors or perfect schedules. She cared about the way her fiancé's eyes would soften when Bella entered a room. She cared that Maximo smiled more in the months since Bella had started working there. She cared that this black woman from nowhere somehow had her fiancé's attention in a way Vanessa, for all her beauty and breeding, had never managed to capture. And Vanessa Hartwell was not a woman who tolerated competition. Bella didn't know any of this. She only knew that her job, the job she desperately needed, was becoming a nightmare. And she couldn't quit. Not now. Not when she'd started her secret mission. It had begun 3 months into her employment. Bella had been packaging leftovers from dinner, expensive cuts of meat, gourmet sides, bread that cost more than her weekly grocery budget when Maria had found her. "What are you doing?" the housekeeper had asked. Bella had frozen, terrified she'd crossed some invisible line. "There's so much food left over. I thought maybe I could take some home, if that's okay. I'll pay for it if..." Bella. Maria's expression had softened. "Mr. Villo doesn't care about leftovers. Take what you want. But why do you need so much?" And Bella had told her the truth. About the kids in her old neighborhood. About the families who went hungry more nights than not. About how she'd grown up in those same streets. Knew what it felt like to go to bed with your stomach cramping from emptiness. "So I bring them food," Bella had said quietly. "Every few days, whatever's left over. It's not much, but it helps." Maria had been quiet for a long moment. Then she'd smiled. "Take whatever you need. I'll make sure there are always leftovers." So Bella had continued her mission. Every Tuesday and Friday night, she'd pack up containers of food, catch the bus back to Englewood, and distribute meals to the kids who gathered in the alley behind her old apartment building. There was Jamal, 8 years old with his 2 younger sisters. There was Destiny, 13, and taking care of her sick grandmother. There was Marcus, 10, whose mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep food on the table. They called Bella their angel. She called them her reason for everything. But she never told anyone at the Villo estate except Maria. It felt private, sacred. These were her kids, her neighborhood, her past that she was trying to honor by making sure no child went as hungry as she once had. She had no idea that her secret was about to destroy everything. The beginning of the end started on a Tuesday morning in late October. Bella had just finished her shift and was in the kitchen, carefully packing leftovers from the previous night's dinner party into containers. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, artisan bread, gourmet desserts. Enough to feed her kids for days. She'd just sealed the last container when she heard footsteps. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, her expression strange, almost excited. "Bella, could you come with me, please?" Her voice was sickeningly sweet. "There's something I need to discuss with you in the dining room." Warning bells rang in Bella's mind, but she had no choice but to follow. The dining room was empty, the table still set from breakfast. Vanessa walked to the sideboard, then turned with a theatrical gesture. "Care to explain this?" Bella looked at what Vanessa was indicating. A notebook, open to a page filled with writing she didn't recognize. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. What am I looking at?" "An inventory log," Vanessa said, her voice turning sharp as a blade. "Of all the food that's been disappearing from this house for months. Expensive ingredients, prime cuts of meat, imported cheeses, thousands of dollars worth." Bella's blood ran cold. Don't lie to me." Vanessa stepped closer. "I've been tracking it. The pattern is clear. Food goes missing on Tuesdays and Fridays. Your working days. And I have witnesses who've seen you taking containers from the kitchen." "I had permission," Bella said, her voice shaking. Maria said, "Maria doesn't make those decisions. I do." Vanessa pulled out a pre-printed termination letter from her designer purse. "You're fired, effective immediately. You have 10 minutes to collect your things and leave the property. And if you ever try to contact Maximo or come near this house again, I'll have you arrested for theft." "Please," Bella whispered, thinking of Leo, of the kids waiting for her in Englewood, of the life she was trying to build. "I wasn't stealing. I was feeding. I don't care what excuses you've invented." Vanessa's smile widened. "You're done here, and when Maximo sees the evidence I've compiled, he'll thank me for protecting his home from someone like you." Bella's hands shook as she took the letter. "Does Maximo know about this?" "He will." Vanessa's smile was poison. "And when he does, he'll see you for exactly what you are. A thief who took advantage of his kindness." Bella wanted to fight, wanted to demand to speak to Maximo herself. But she looked at Vanessa's triumphant expression and knew it was useless. This woman had planned every detail, had covered every angle. Bella had no power here, no voice that would be heard over the word of someone like Vanessa Hartwell. So she did the only thing she could do. She walked to the small locker room where staff kept their personal belongings, gathered her worn coat and purse, and left the Villo estate with her head high and tears streaming down her face. She didn't see Maximo's car pull into the driveway just as she walked out the gate. She didn't see him stride into the house, demanding to know why his head of security had just informed him that Bella Ford had been terminated. She didn't see the fury on his face when Vanessa, with practiced tears, told him about the stealing, the lying, the betrayal, and she didn't see him, an hour later, standing alone in his security room, staring at months of camera feeds with an expression that would have terrified anyone who knew him. Because Maximo Villo trusted no one, not completely, and that included his fiancée. So he checked everything himself. Maximo Villo stood in his private security room, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of his estate. His head of security, Carlos, stood beside him, silent, tense, knowing better than to speak when his boss wore that expression. "Show me everything from the past 6 months," Maximo ordered, his voice cold as winter. "Every camera in the kitchen, storage areas, and service entrances." "Sir," Miss Hartwell said the kitchen cameras were. "The kitchen cameras have never malfunctioned a day in their existence." Maximo's voice could have cut steel. "I pay too much for that to be possible. Show me." For the next 3 hours, Maximo watched. He watched Bella enter the kitchen dozens of times over the months, always to work, always to care for Leo, always moving with quiet efficiency. He watched her eat the staff meals provided, watched her sometimes skip meals entirely when she was rushing to catch her bus home. He never once saw her take anything that didn't belong to her, but he saw something else. He saw Vanessa, 4 months ago, carefully removing expensive cuts of meat from the refrigerator. Saw her on different days taking imported cheeses, bottles of wine, gourmet ingredients. Saw her documenting each item in a notebook with meticulous precision, building her evidence, creating her trap. Maximo's hands clenched into fists as the truth crystallized. Vanessa had been stealing from his own kitchen, framing an innocent woman to eliminate someone she perceived as a threat. But why? What had Bella done to warrant such calculated cruelty? He fast-forwarded through more footage, and his jaw tightened. There, a moment from 2 months ago. Late evening. Maximo had been in the kitchen, unable to sleep, pouring himself a drink. Bella had been there, looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. He'd insisted she sit down, had made her tea, had talked with her for 30 minutes about nothing important. Leo's latest obsession with astronomy, the book she was reading, her grandmother's improving health. The camera caught them laughing together, caught the way he'd smiled at her, the softness in his expression that he rarely showed anyone. And there, in the doorway where she thought no one could see, was Vanessa, watching. Her face twisted with jealousy so intense it was almost frightening. Maximo turned off the monitors, his mind working with the cold precision that had made him one of the most powerful men in Chicago. Then he saw something else. More recent footage from yesterday. Bella in the kitchen after her shift, carefully packing containers of leftover food. Her movements were practiced, efficient. She'd been doing this for months. "Carlos," Maximo said quietly, "I want you to follow Bella Ford. Find out where she goes with that food. I want to know everything." "Yes, sir." Carlos hesitated. "And Miss Hartwell?" "I'll handle her personally." Maximo found Vanessa in the formal living room, arranging flowers as if she hadn't just destroyed someone's livelihood hours earlier. She smiled when she saw him, a smile that died when she saw his face. "Maximo, darling, is something wrong? Where is she?" His voice was quiet, deadly. "Who? Don't." He moved closer, and Vanessa actually stepped back. "Good. She should be afraid. I've seen the security footage, Vanessa. All of it." The color drained from her face. "I can explain. You stole from my house. You framed an innocent woman. You fired her under false pretenses." Maximo's words were precise, controlled, but beneath them was a rage that made the air vibrate. "Why?" "She was getting too comfortable," Vanessa said, her composure cracking. "She was Maximo. She's just a nanny. And you look at her like what? Like you've never looked at me." The words burst out of Vanessa like poison. "I'm your fiancé. I'm the one who should matter to you. But ever since she arrived, you've been different. Softer. You smile at her. You talk to her. You notice her in a way you've never noticed me." Maximo stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time. "You're right about one thing. I never looked at you the way I look at Bella. Do you want to know why?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, real or calculated. He no longer cared. "Because Bella is genuine," he said coldly. "She's kind, hardworking, honest. She loves my son without expecting anything in return. She makes Leo laugh, really laugh, for the first time since his mother died. And yes, Vanessa, when I look at her, I see something I thought I'd never find again. I see someone worth caring about. Maximo, please. This engagement was always a business arrangement, he continued. Pulling the enormous diamond ring from his pocket, she'd left it on the bathroom counter that morning. Our families wanted the alliance. I went along with it because I didn't care enough to fight it, but you just made me care. He placed the ring on the mantel. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave my house. If you're still here after that, I'll have you removed. You can't do this. Vanessa's voice shook. My father. Your father, Maximo interrupted, his voice dropping to a register that made Vanessa flinch. Knows exactly who I am and what happens to people who cross me. If he's smart, he'll accept this quietly and be grateful I'm letting you walk away intact. He turned toward the door. If you ever speak Bella Ford's name again, if you ever go near her, if you even think about her, I will destroy everything you and your family have built. That's not a threat, Vanessa. That's a promise. He left her standing there, trembling, and headed to his office where Carlos was waiting. Sir, I followed Miss Ford as you requested. And? Carlos pulled out his phone, showed Maximo a series of photographs. Bella in an alley in Englewood, surrounded by children, handing out containers of food, kneeling to talk to a little girl, hugging a boy who couldn't have been more than 8. The next photo showed her sitting on a concrete step, a dozen kids gathered around her, eating the food she'd brought. She was smiling the most genuine, beautiful smile Maximo had ever seen. She's been doing this for months, Carlos said quietly. Every Tuesday and Friday. The kids in that neighborhood know her. They call her their angel. She's not stealing, sir. She's feeding hungry children with food that would have been thrown away. Maximo stared at the photographs, something tightening in his chest. All this time, Bella had been taking leftovers food that meant nothing to him and using it to feed children who had nothing. She'd never asked for recognition, never demanded compensation. She'd simply seen a need and filled it, quietly, humbly, with the resources available to her, and Vanessa had destroyed her for it. Find her, Maximo said, his voice rough. I don't care what it takes. Find Bella Ford and bring me her address. I'm going to fix this. 40 minutes later, Maximo stood outside a building that made his jaw clench with fury. Cracked windows, graffiti on the walls, the smell of garbage and decay. The lock on the main door was broken. The stairs creaked ominously under his weight. This was where Bella lived. This was where she came home every night after working herself to exhaustion in his mansion. He climbed to apartment 4C and knocked. Silence. Then soft footsteps, cautious. Who is it? Bella's voice, thick with tears. It's Maximo. Please, Bella, open the door. I need to talk to you. More silence. Then the sound of locks turning too many locks for any door to need. The door opened a crack, and Bella's face appeared red, swollen from crying, her eyes widening in shock. You need to leave, she whispered. Vanessa said if I contacted you, she'd have me arrested. Vanessa is gone. Maximo kept his voice gentle, though fury still simmered beneath the surface. Can I come in? Please. I know the truth. Bella hesitated, then opened the door wider. Maximo stepped into a studio apartment so small his bedroom closet was probably larger. But it was clean, organized, everything in its place despite the obvious poverty. A worn couch that had seen better days, a tiny kitchenette with a hot plate instead of a stove, a mattress on the floor in the corner, neatly made with faded sheets, and on a small table by the window, photographs. The children from the alley, Bella surrounded by smiling faces, kids holding up drawings they'd made for her, a picture of her serving food from those same containers he'd seen in the security footage. I saw the cameras, Maximo said, turning to face her. I know what Vanessa did. I know she was the one stealing, that she framed you. And Bella, his voice caught. I know about the children. Bella's eyes widened. How? I had you followed. He saw her stiffen and raised a hand. I needed to understand. I needed to know where that food was going. And when I found out, he moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. You weren't stealing, Bella. You were feeding hungry children with food that would have been thrown away. You were doing something beautiful, something selfless. And Vanessa destroyed you for it because she was jealous. Jealous? Bella's laugh was bitter. Of what? I'm nobody. Don't say that. Maximo's voice turned sharp, and Bella startled. He softened immediately. You're not nobody. Bella. You're everything she could never be with all her money and connections. You're kind, genuine, compassionate. You love my son without expecting anything in return. You feed hungry children and never ask for recognition. He pulled papers from his coat. The termination was fraudulent. I voided it. You have your job back with a substantial raise and a formal apology from me for what you endured. Bella stared at the papers but didn't take them. I can't come back. Why not? She was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she walked to the photographs on the table and picked one up. A group shot Bella surrounded by at least 15 children, all of them smiling, holding plates of food. Because this is why I needed that job, she said softly. These kids, Maximo, I grew up in this neighborhood. I know what it's like to go to bed hungry, to wonder if there'll be food tomorrow, to feel invisible to everyone who has the power to help. She turned to face him, tears streaming down her beautiful face. I thought I could use the leftovers food that didn't matter to anyone to make a difference, to give these kids one thing I never had. Someone who sees them, who cares if they eat, who shows up consistently. Bella's voice broke. But now everyone will know. Vanessa will tell people I was fired for stealing, and no one else will hire me. I'll lose my apartment. And these kids, she looked at the photograph, these kids will go back to being hungry, and it's my fault for thinking I could help. Maximo crossed the small apartment in 3 strides and pulled Bella into his arms. She stiffened in surprise, then melted against him, sobbing into his chest. Listen to me, he said fiercely, his hand cradling the back of her head. You're not losing anything. Not your job. Not this mission with the kids. Not your apartment. I'm going to fix this. You can't fix everything. Watch me. He pulled back enough to cup her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Bella, I'm going to be honest with you about something, and I need you to really hear me. She nodded, her breath hitching. These past months, I've been lying to myself, Maximo said, his voice raw with honesty, telling myself that what I felt for you was nothing, that it would pass, that I could go through with marrying Vanessa because emotions didn't matter in my world. Bella's breath caught. Maximo, let me finish. His thumb brushed away her tears. Today, when I thought you were gone, when I thought I'd lost you because I hadn't protected you, it broke something in me. I don't want to live in a world where I don't see you every day, where I don't hear your voice, where I can't make sure you're safe and cared for. You're saying this because you feel guilty, Bella whispered. I'm saying this because it's the truth. Maximo's eyes held hers with burning intensity. I'm saying this because I've been falling for you since the day you promised my son you wouldn't leave him. I'm saying this because when I look at you, I see everything good that still exists in this dark world I live in. He took a shaky breath. I'm saying this because I want you in my life, Bella. You and your mission with those kids. I want to help you feed them, support you, protect you. I want to be part of something that matters, and you matter more than anything. This is crazy, Bella said, but her hands were clutching his shirt, holding him close instead of pushing him away. We barely know each other. You're you, and I'm just... You're everything, Maximo interrupted. And I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. But Bella, I didn't get where I am by waiting for the perfect moment. I got here by recognizing what matters and fighting for it. What are you saying? I'm saying move into the estate. Not as staff as my guest. Let me take care of you. Let me help you with the kids in Englewood. Let me prove that what I feel is real. He paused, his voice dropping. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I want more. I want you to be mine, Bella. In every way that matters. Bella searched his face, looking for deception, for pity, for anything false. But all she saw was sincerity, desire, and something that looked terrifyingly like love. I'm scared, she admitted in a whisper. So am I. Maximo's admission surprised her. I'm terrified. The last woman I cared about, Leo's mother, she was taken from me by my enemies. I swore I'd never let anyone get that close again. But you, his voice roughened. You slipped past every defense I had, and now I can't imagine my life without you in it. What if something happens? What if your world? Then we'll face it together. He pulled her closer. I can't promise you safety, Bella. My world is dangerous, but I can promise you honesty, protection, and everything I have to give. I can promise that I'll fight for you, for us, with everything in me. Bella thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heater and thin walls. Thought about the constant struggle, the fear, the exhaustion. But more than that, she thought about Leo's laughter, about Maximo's arms around her, making her feel safe for the first time in her life, about the possibility of helping more children, of making a real difference, instead of just barely surviving. She thought about love. Messy, complicated, terrifying love. Okay, she whispered. Maximo's smile was like sunrise. Okay? Okay. Bella let herself lean into him. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could happen to girls like her. I'll move into the estate. I'll let you help with the kids. I'll try this. Whatever this is. Thank you, he breathed, pressing his forehead to hers. Thank you for giving me a chance. For being brave enough to trust me. But Maximo, Bella pulled back slightly to meet his eyes. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never lie to me. Never hide things or make decisions about my life without asking me. I've had enough of men who think they know what's best for me. Maximo's expression turned serious. I promise. Partners, Bella. In everything. Your voice matters. Your choices matter. You matter. When he kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise, Bella finally let herself believe that everything might actually be okay. The next 3 months transformed Bella's life in ways she'd never imagined possible. Moving into the Villo estate felt surreal. Maximo gave her an entire suite, bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, all decorated in warm creams and soft golds that made her feel cherished rather than overwhelmed. Maria, once she learned the truth about what had happened, became Bella's fiercest protector. That Hartwell woman, she'd muttered while helping Bella unpack. I knew something was wrong. Should have trusted my instincts. But the biggest change was with Leo. You're staying, he'd asked that first morning, his dark eyes wide with hope and fear. Forever? Forever, Bella had promised, kneeling to his level. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Leo had thrown himself into her arms, and Bella had held him tight, her heart full to bursting. And Maximo was everything. Attentive but not controlling, protective but not possessive. He respected her boundaries, her independence, her need to maintain her own identity, but he also spoiled her shamelessly. New clothes appeared in her closet, beautiful things that actually fit her body, made for her skin tone, chosen with care. You deserve to feel beautiful, he'd said when she protested. Let me give you this. He arranged for her grandmother to see the best doctors in Chicago, covering all costs without hesitation. When Bella tried to refuse, he'd simply said, Family takes care of family. Your grandmother is important to you, which makes her important to me. And the kids in Englewood. Maximo embraced her mission completely. Show me, he'd said one Friday evening. Take me with you. I want to meet them. So Bella had brought him to the alley. And the children's initial fear of this imposing man in the expensive suit had melted when they saw how he treated Bella, how he listened to them, how he genuinely cared. Mr. Villo bought a community center, Jamal had told Bella excitedly a month later. In our neighborhood, with a kitchen and everything. Bella, we can feed even more kids now. Bella had turned to Maximo, tears in her eyes. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. He'd pulled her close. You showed me something I'd forgotten, that power and wealth mean nothing if you're not using them to help people who need it. These kids deserve better, and we're going to give it to them. But it wasn't all perfect. There were moments when Maximo's world intruded, when he'd come home late with blood on his knuckles that he'd try to hide, when men in suits would arrive for tense meetings in his study, when she'd catch glimpses of the violence that lurked beneath the surface. One night, about 2 months after she'd moved in, Bella found him in his study, staring at nothing, his expression haunted. Talk to me, she said softly, closing the door behind her. You shouldn't be here. Not when I'm like this. When you're like what? Human? Bella moved to stand in front of him. Maximo, I chose this life. I chose you. That means all of you, the good parts and the hard parts. He looked up at her, something broken in his eyes. I killed a man tonight, Bella. He was trying to move product through territory I control, and when I confronted him, he pulled a gun. So his voice cracked. I did what I had to do, but it doesn't make it easier. Bella's heart ached for him. She moved to sit on his lap, wrapping her arms around him, holding him close. I'm sorry you had to do that, she whispered. I'm sorry your world forces those choices on you. Doesn't it bother you, knowing what I'm capable of? It bothers me that you're in danger, Bella said honestly. It bothers me that people force your hand. But no, Maximo, it doesn't change how I feel about you. I see who you are, a man trying to protect the people he loves in a world that doesn't allow for weakness. She cupped his face, making him look at her. You're not a monster. You're a man doing what he has to do to survive, to protect Leo, to keep the people who depend on you safe. I won't judge you for that. Maximo pulled her closer, burying his face in her neck. I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me. They sat like that for a long time, finding comfort in each other. And when Maximo finally kissed her deep and desperate and full of need, Bella responded with everything she had. Their relationship deepened slowly, beautifully. Stolen kisses in hallways, long conversations late at night, Maximo teaching her to dance in the empty ballroom, Bella reading to him from her favorite books while he worked. Leo thrived with both of them in his life. The three of them became a unit: movie nights cuddled on the couch, trips to the planetarium, lazy Sunday mornings making pancakes together. Bella felt herself falling deeper every day, and from the way Maximo looked at her like she was precious, essential, irreplaceable, she knew he felt the same. It was perfect, too perfect. And in Maximo's world, perfect never lasted. The threat came on a cold December evening. Bella had taken Leo to the community center to help distribute food, something they did together now, teaching him about compassion and service. Maximo's security team had come with them, as always, but the atmosphere had been relaxed, safe. They were heading back to the car when it happened. A black van screeched around the corner. Doors flew open. Men in masks grabbed Bella before she could scream. "Leo, run!" she shouted, fighting against the hands dragging her backward. But they grabbed him too, this small, terrified boy who'd already lost his mother. The last thing Bella saw before something covered her face and the world went dark was Carlos, Maximo's head of security, going down with a bullet in his shoulder. Then nothing. When Bella woke, her head was pounding and her wrists were bound with zip ties. She was in a concrete room with no windows, cold, damp, the kind of place where screams wouldn't be heard. But all she could think about was Leo. "Leo," she called out, her voice hoarse. "Leo, baby, are you here?" A whimper came from the corner. Bella's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and her heart shattered. Leo was huddled against the wall, his hands also bound, his face streaked with tears. But he was alive. He was okay. "Bella," he sobbed. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Bella tried to move toward him, but her ankles were also tied. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm scared." "I know, baby, I know. But listen to me, your daddy is going to find us. He's probably already looking. We just need to be brave a little longer, okay?" The door opened. A man walked in, tall, blonde, with cold eyes and a cruel smile. He looked at Bella with an expression that made her skin crawl. "Dmitry Volkov," he said in accented English. "And you must be the woman who has Maximo Villo so distracted." Bella lifted her chin despite her fear. "What do you want?" "What I want," Volkov circled her slowly, "is to watch Maximo Villo suffer. He took something from me, territory that was mine by right, business that should have been mine, so I'm taking something from him." He gestured to Leo, who flinched. "His son, and you his woman. The two things he values most in this world. He'll come for us," Bella said, her voice stronger than she felt. "And when he does, I'll be ready." Volkov's smile widened. "You see, I don't want to kill you, Miss Ford. I want to use you. Maximo will come charging in to rescue you both, blinded by emotion, desperate, and that's when I'll destroy him. His empire will crumble, and I'll take everything he has." Bella's mind raced. She thought of Maximo, thought of how he'd told her about the dangers of his world, thought of the training she'd started with his security team, basic self-defense, how to stay calm under pressure, how to look for opportunities. "You're wrong about one thing," she said quietly. "What's that?" "Maximo won't come in blind. He'll come with a plan, with strategy, with every resource he has." Bella met Volkov's eyes. "And you'll lose, because that's what he does. He protects what's his, always." Volkov's smile faded. He raised his hand, and Bella braced for the blow. It never came, because at that moment, the building exploded with noise, gunfire, shouting, the sound of doors being breached. Maximo had found them. 30 minutes earlier, Maximo had been in his study when his phone rang. Carlos. Injured but alive. "They took them, sir. Bella and Leo." "I'm sorry, I tried." "Where are you?" Maximo was already moving, his voice deadly calm, even as terror clawed at his chest. "Ambulance, heading to Northwestern." "But sir, I got a partial plate on the van." And I recognized one of the men Volkov's crew. Dmitry Volkov, a rival who'd been pushing at Maximo's territory for months, who'd been growing bolder, more reckless. Maximo made 3 calls. One to his father, the elder Villo still had connections throughout the city. One to his network of informants. One to his private security force. "Find them," he said, his voice like ice. "I don't care what it takes. Find my son and my woman. Now." It took 23 minutes. 23 minutes of Maximo pacing his office like a caged animal, of imagining every horrible possibility, of terror unlike anything he'd felt since Isabella's death. 23 minutes before his father called back. Abandoned warehouse, south side, near the old stockyards. "I've got eyes on the building, 6 men outside, probably more inside." "Maximo, you need to be smart about this. I'm going in." Maximo was already grabbing his tactical gear, his weapons. "Assemble the team. 5-minute timeline." "Son, if you go in emotional, you'll get them killed." Maximo paused, his father's words cutting through the rage. He took a breath, forced himself to think strategically, instead of emotionally. "You're right," he said finally. "We do this smart. We do this clean. But we do it now." The assault was textbook perfect. Maximo's team moved like shadows, taking out the exterior guards silently, breaching the building from 3 entry points simultaneously. Maximo led the primary team, his father covering the rear exit to prevent escape. They cleared room after room with military precision. And when they finally reached the room where Bella and Leo were being held, when Maximo saw Volkov standing over them with his hand raised, something primal took over. "Get away from her," Maximo growled. His gun trained on Volkov's head. Volkov spun, reaching for his weapon. Maximo was faster. His shot took Volkov in the shoulder, dropping the man to his knees. "Daddy!" Leo's voice, terrified but alive. Maximo wanted to run to them, to hold them, to never let go. But he kept his weapon on Volkov, kept his tactical awareness sharp. "Marco," he called, and one of his men moved forward to cut Bella and Leo's restraints. "Behind you!" Bella shouted suddenly. Maximo spun. One of Volkov's men had appeared in the doorway, gun drawn. Maximo fired twice center mass, clean kills. The man dropped. More gunfire erupted from deeper in the warehouse. Maximo's team engaged, the sound deafening in the concrete space. "Get them out!" Maximo ordered Marco. "Now. Back entrance. Armored vehicle waiting." "I'm not leaving you," Bella said fiercely, even as Marco tried to guide her and Leo toward the exit. "Bella." "No." She pulled away from Marco, moved to Maximo's side. "We're a family. We leave together or not at all." Maximo wanted to argue, to force her to safety. But looking at her face, determined, courageous, absolutely certain, he knew she wouldn't budge. "Fine." He grabbed her hand. "But you stay behind me, and you do exactly what I say. Understood?" "Understood." They moved as a unit, Maximo in front, Bella holding Leo close behind him, Marco covering their rear. The warehouse had turned into a war zone, but Maximo's team was winning, systematically eliminating Volkov's men. They were almost to the exit when Volkov, bleeding but still dangerous, lurched to his feet. "You think you've won?" he snarled, pulling a detonator from his jacket. "If I can't have my revenge, nobody gets anything." Bella's eyes widened. "Is that—" "Explosives," Maximo confirmed, his mind racing. "Everyone out, now." They ran. Maximo scooped Leo into one arm, kept his other hand locked with Bella's, and sprinted for the exit. Behind them, Volkov was laughing, his finger hovering over the detonator button. Maximo's father appeared in the doorway ahead, providing covering fire. "Move, move, move." They burst out of the warehouse just as the explosion ripped through the building. The force threw them forward, Maximo twisting his body to shield both Bella and Leo from the blast. They hit the ground hard. Maximo's ears were ringing, his body aching, but he immediately checked them over. "Are you hurt? Leo? Bella?" "We're okay," Bella gasped, dirt and debris covering her face. "We're okay." Leo was crying but uninjured. Bella had a cut on her forehead but was otherwise whole. Maximo pulled them both into his arms, holding them so tightly they could barely breathe. His whole body was shaking with relief and residual fear. "I thought I lost you," he whispered into Bella's hair. "Both of you, I thought. We're here." Bella held him just as tightly, one arm around him, the other around Leo. "We're safe. You saved us. You saved yourself." Maximo pulled back to look at her, his hand cupping her face. "You kept Leo calm. You warned me about that guard. You were so brave, Bella. So incredibly brave." "I had to be," she said simply. "For him? For us?" Emergency vehicles were arriving, fire trucks, ambulances, police, that Maximo's family had in their pocket. His team was rounding up the surviving members of Volkov's crew, and in the burning warehouse, Dmitry Volkov's ambitions had died with him, but Maximo barely noticed any of it. He was focused entirely on the woman and child in his arms, his family, his world, his everything. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Bella blinked. "What?" "Marry me, Bella. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down. Right now, today." Maximo's voice was urgent, desperate. "I almost lost you. I almost lost both of you. And I realize that I've been waiting for the perfect moment. But there is no perfect moment. There's only now." He pulled a ring from his pocket. He'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting, planning. It wasn't the enormous diamond he'd given Vanessa. This was elegant, simple, perfect, a platinum band with a single flawless stone surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught the light from the burning building. "Bella Ford, you walked into my life and changed everything. You made my son laugh again. You showed me that there's still goodness in this world worth fighting for. You're brave and kind and strong and everything I never knew I needed." Tears streamed down Bella's face as Maximo continued. "I love you. I love how you see people really see them. I love how you fight for what matters. I love your strength and your compassion, and the way you love my son like he's yours. I love you, Bella, and I want to spend every day for the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you chose us." "Yes," Bella whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Maximo slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and kissed her with everything he felt. Relief, and love, and promise, and forever. When they finally broke apart, Leo was looking up at them with wide, hopeful eyes. "Does this mean Bella's going to be my mom? Like, really my mom?" Bella and Maximo both looked at him, their hearts breaking and healing at the same time. "If that's okay with you," Bella said softly. "Would you like that?" Leo's answer was to throw himself into her arms, holding her tight. "I want that more than anything." Then it settled. Maximo wrapped his arms around both of them. "We're a family. Official and forever." They were married in the Villo estate's garden on a crisp December morning. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends, with enough security to invade a small country. Bella wore a simple ivory dress that made her look like an angel. Leo was the ring bearer, his proud smile making everyone in attendance tear up. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Maximo kissed his bride like she was oxygen itself. The elder Villo, who'd been skeptical at first, had pulled Bella aside before the ceremony. "I was wrong about you," he'd said gruffly. "You're not a liability. You're the best thing that's happened to this family in decades. You make my son happy. You make my grandson thrive. You've given them something I couldn't hope." He'd pressed a gift into her hands, a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace, clearly an heirloom, beautiful and priceless. "This belonged to my wife," he'd said. "Maximo's mother. She would have loved you. Welcome to the family, Bella." Now, at the reception, Bella stood with Maximo's arms around her, watching Leo dance with Maria, listening to laughter and music fill the air. "Happy," Maximo murmured against her ear. "Deliriously," Bella admitted. "Although I never imagined happiness would come with bodyguards and security sweeps. Regrets? Never." She turned in his arms to look up at him. "Not a single one." "Good." Maximo's hand moved to rest on her still flat stomach they'd only just found out that morning. "Because in about 8 months, Leo's going to be a big brother, so you're stuck with us forever now." Bella's eyes widened, her hand covering his. "You knew?" "I notice everything about you," Maximo said softly. "Every change, every detail. And this morning when you couldn't drink your coffee." He grinned. "I hoped." Tears of joy streamed down Bella's face as she kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude into it. This was her life now. Complicated, sometimes dangerous, but utterly, completely hers. A family built on choice and love and fierce determination. She'd started as a nanny accused of stealing food. She'd become a wife, a mother, a partner to a man who ruled an empire but knelt at her feet. And as she watched Leo play in the garden while Maximo held her close, Bella knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was exactly where she belonged. Bella stood in the community center, not the small one Maximo had first purchased, but the expanded facility that now served hundreds of families across Chicago's South Side. It housed a full kitchen, a health clinic, an after-school program, and a job training center. The Villo Foundation, as it was officially called, had grown beyond her wildest dreams. What had started with her bringing leftover food to hungry children had become a comprehensive support system for struggling families. And today, They were opening their 5th location. "Mama!" 8-year-old Leo ran up to her, his little sister Maya on his heels. At 3 years old, Maya was all wild curls and mischief, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's smile. "Uncle Jamal says the ribbon cutting is in 5 minutes. Jamal, the 8-year-old boy Bella had first fed in that alley 5 years ago, was now 13 and worked part-time at the center. He was one of their biggest success stories, maintaining a 4 gigapascals and planning to go to college. "Where's your father?" Bella asked, scanning the crowd. "Conference call with the mayor," Leo said importantly. "But he said he'll be here in time." Bella smiled. Maximo had gone semi-legitimate over the past few years, still maintaining enough of his empire to command respect, but increasingly focusing on legal businesses and community investment. The streets were safer, the neighborhoods stronger. All because he'd learned that true power came from building up rather than tearing down. She'd changed him, he'd changed her, they'd changed each other in all the best ways. "Mrs. Villo," one of the center's directors approached. "We're ready whenever you are." Bella took a breath, looked at the building that represented everything she'd fought for, everything she and Maximo had built together. Then she felt strong arms wrap around her from behind. "Sorry I'm late," Maximo murmured, kissing her neck. "The mayor wanted to discuss expanding the program citywide. And? I told him we'd consider it if he increased police funding for community outreach, instead of militarization." Maximo grinned. "He's thinking about it." Bella laughed, leaning back against him. "You're getting soft, Mr. Villo. Only for you, Mrs. Villo." He spun her to face him, his eyes full of love. "You ready to cut this ribbon and change more lives? With you? Always." They walked to the front of the building together, their children beside them, the elder Villo watching proudly from the crowd. When Bella cut the ribbon and the doors opened, cheers erupted. Children flooded in, excited, hopeful, safe. Families who would get meals, medical care, education, support, lives that would be changed because one woman had decided that leftover food was too precious to waste, and one man had decided that she was worth changing his entire world for. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Maximo and Bella sat in their bedroom, the same room where he'd first asked her to marry him all those years ago. "Do you ever think about how we started?" Bella asked, curled against his chest. "Me, the nanny accused of stealing. You, the terrifying Mafia boss." "I think about it every day," Maximo admitted. "I think about how close I came to losing you before I even really had you. How Vanessa's jealousy almost destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Do you ever wonder what happened to her? Last I heard, she married some European count and lives in Monaco." Maximo's arms tightened around Bella. "I hope she's happy. I hope she learned that you can't force love or manufacture connection. But mostly, I just don't think about her at all." He tilted Bella's face up to his. "Because I'm too busy being grateful for you, for this life we've built, for our children and our family and the difference we're making together." "I love you," Bella whispered, "even when you're being dramatic." "I love you too," Maximo kissed her softly, "even when you're being stubborn." They held each other as the Chicago night deepened outside their windows. Two people from completely different worlds who'd found their way to each other through darkness and danger and ultimately, love. Bella thought back to that terrible day when she'd walked out of this mansion with tears streaming down her face, thinking her life was over. She'd been so wrong. Her life had just been beginning. And now, 5 years and countless blessings later, she could finally say with complete certainty, every struggle had been worth it. Every tear, every fear, every moment of doubt had led her exactly where she needed to be. Home. With the man who saw her when no one else did. With the children who filled her days with laughter. With a purpose that transformed pain into power. She was Bella Villo now. Wife, mother, philanthropist, the heart of an empire built on love instead of fear. And she'd never been more grateful for the journey that brought her here. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.